I'm Ann Charles.
I'm Linda Quinlan.
I'm Keith Ghostland. Today is Tuesday, March 10th. This is All Things LGBTQ. We want to start with an acknowledgement. We are taping in Montpelier. This is unceded Indigenous land. And with that,
I have many headlines. It's been 3 weeks since we taped. A lot has happened.
Such little time.
Including the following. Indian American LGBTQ community says Be Extra Careful is a game changer. That's a Bollywood movie. I'm going to show a clip later. It's the first gay romantic comedy from Bollywood, and it has been banned in the UAE and in Kenya. But the Desi population in the U.S. is very excited, and we'll talk more about that. News from Poland, Croatian news, Hong Kong's homophobic public housing policy ruled unconstitutional and unlawful by the High Court. News from Israel. Tickets are now on sale for London's first ever Muslim LGBT Pride Fest.
Nice.
The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights rules that Jamaica's anti-buggery law is incompatible with the American Convention of Human Rights. And it's always been. They're just giving them a nudge. This ruling has occurred for a long time, and Jamaica's not doing anything about it, so they're trying to urge them. They're given a year now to comply.
the use of the term buggery tells you how out of date it is.
No kidding. No kidding. Now let's look at a picture of transgender weightlifter Laurel Hubbard. She continues her Tokyo bid in Australia. So let's look at the picture. If we have time, we'll get to that story. We may not. Another picture before you now is of Camila Prins, age 40, who is the Brazilian transgender dancer who shatters the carnival parade taboo. So you can see her dancing in the parade. And last, addicted to corporate dollars, Sydney's Mardi Gras is selling its soul, according to a commentator. It's the same problem we're having all over the world with corporate pride.
Yeah.
I thought you were referencing the primaries.
That too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Those are my headlines.
Okay, those are your headlines. Well, we have this upcoming election, and if how about Tammy Baldwin as a vice presidential pick for the either
The Democratic side.
Yeah, either for Biden or
Bernie.
So I think she would be a good pick, don't you?
Is this your editorial?
This is my editorial. I like her, and and I think she'd be good. She's more lefty, especially for Biden. So, and out Senator Kristen Sinema endorses Biden.
Arizona.
Arizona, yes. She endorses Biden.
Guys. Sorry.
The pressure's on you.
I know, no kidding. During a hearing at the House Appropriation Committee, Representative Mike, Democrat, Mike, where am I? Oh my, I'm having one of those days, I know. Anyway.
Well, let's start with the name.
All
Mike.
Right. I'm looking, because I think it got crossed out when I had this printed. Anyway.
Oh.
Yeah, from HUD. Had this big fight with Ben Carson, the Secretary of HUD, about his transphobia.
The representative from Illinois.
Yeah, Mike something from Illinois. But it doesn't seem to...
You got that he was a Democrat, but
he
not
was
his
a Democrat,
last name.
and his name was Mike.
And these are headlines.
These are headlines.
So you can come back to it.
Yeah. Pro golfer loses 3 sponsorships after making homophobic joke about Pete Buttigieg. Idaho GOP wants genital exams for girls in high school sports. Gay candidate Todd Gloria comes in first as a Democrat in the San Diego Memorial primary. Ray Moore suffers a humiliating loss in Alabama. Roy Moore. And he
was he riding his horse?
He's out. He's riding his horse, yes. Ben Shergay is the first transgender graduate from the Philadelphia Police Academy.
Very good.
I know. Hours after a restroom incident, a trans woman is found dead in Puerto Rico. And Wilton Manors loses their mayor. He died unexpectedly. Justin Flippin was 41 years old and was mayor in the city with an all-LGBT council, Wilton Manors. And he died from a brain aneurysm. So that was much too young to lose him.
And he was beloved.
Yeah.
And he was driving to a city council meeting when it happened.
Yeah, pretty bad. Brigham Young University revives its honor code and asked LBG students to transfer, go to another school. Coronavirus is punishment for LGBTQ sins, says far-right minister Stephen Andrew. And then there's a story about Aaron Schock, former GOP politician, comes out as gay. We have a little
deplorable homophobic record.
Okay,
I'm going to get to that in my story.
I was going to say, and why do we care?
I know.
Exactly.
And a Georgia school is on the defensive after a 13-year-old transgender student was removed from a Valentine's Day dance for wearing makeup and girls' clothing. So we'll have more on that. And then I'm going to have a clip. So, okay, Keith, you're on.
So the trivia question, and Linda got it on her first try. Out in the Mountains, front page, March 1986. Following community organizing and a dramatic increase in letters and phone calls to the legislature, House Bill 622 was rescheduled for what had been a canceled public hearing. What did H22 do? So, and then I want to talk a little bit about a change that has happened relative to your health care records and what you might be wanting to do. Canada, their House of Commons is debating S206, which would ban conversion therapy and impose fines for people who use it fraudulently. This would be the first country to do it on a nationwide basis. And then I'll talk a little bit about some upcoming events. One of the things to put on your calendar, March 31st, LGBTQ plus Visibility Day at the State House.
Mm-hmm.
Keep your calendars open for the weekend of maybe June 13th and 14th, when Rainbow Umbrella and the Savoy Theater may be bringing back a Vermont Pride tradition, and maybe you'll get to see some LGBTQ plus films that otherwise might not be available.
That would be, yeah.
She's texting something quickly there, but
she's looking for something.
I'm
Go ahead.
for Linda's
It's
lawmaker.
your turn.
Okay. Linda's lawmaker will be revealed.
Maybe.
Okay, let's talk about this Bollywood film. Bollywood is on a roll. The kind of subjects attempted by mainstream cinema and popular actors is indeed commendable, and it's clear that there's no limit to the variety of subjects ready to be tackled by the younger generation of stars. The recent film addresses a bigger issue with the typical Bollywood style. The movie, which translated from the Hindi is Be Extra Careful About Marriage, has all the Bollywood trimmings. The catchy songs, the hot romance, the dances, the big Indian wedding, the comedy, and the drama, which have made it a box office hit. Yet it has something more, which will ensure that it will become a milestone marker in Hindi film history. The film has intelligence and heart. It is gay. It's a gay love story between that presents the two main characters as having a very natural love that's very palpable to the audience. They look and act as if they're made for each other, but between them stand a homophobic society and their unbending families. Huge problems, but the director handles these major issues with humor. The two heroes are salesmen who meet in Delhi and fall in love. They face no hurdles in the big city and naively believe they can go back to Allahabad, where's their hometown, and convince the parents to agree to the union. Kartik, who comes out to his father in his teens, is especially confident of this plan working out without a hitch. But Aman, who knows his Orthodox family better, remains skeptical. Be extra careful about marriage entertains and yet creates real gay characters with real concerns and hurts, not the ridiculous gay characters we've generally seen in Bollywood movies, which are the butt of jokes and innuendo. Just like back home, even within the diasporic community, Indian gays and lesbians are often invisible. This film makes gay characters the leads, the stars of their own story. In New York, the film played to packed houses, and of course the Indian American LGBT community turned up in full force. They could laugh and celebrate together. Bollywood had finally made this community visible and given them a place in the storytelling. A number of these audience members were interviewed. The rights activist said it's bringing much needed visibility and acceptance to the LGBTQ community. When a prominent actor and influencer takes a stance on social issues like gay rights, society sees it from a very different lens. For too long, the portrayal of LGBTQ plus characters in Bollywood have been more comical and in many cases derogatory. So it's refreshing to see homosexuality portrayed as the central subject of a movie. This activist, who recently got married in a big family-approved wedding in Texas to his spouse, his male spouse, believes that movies like that can really help Indians understand their sexuality and address it. I think of many LGBTQ plus folks growing up in small towns across India, not knowing why they're attracted to the same sex or feeling different. This movie will hopefully inspire those young people to love themselves more. Representation matters. And now I have a clip of a scene in the movie. Unfortunately, it's not translated, but it doesn't really need much translation. So let's take a look at that now.
भाई लोग, वीर ने cool सी entry plan करो. It should be sexy AF.
I love the music in that.
Mm-hmm. It's very
really,
upbeat.
really upbeat. So I think we're going to have to move on.
Okay.
We have a lot of clips tonight and interviews. So,
Well,
and his
just
name
one
is
interview.
Mike Quigley.
Mike Quigley, thank you.
During a hearing at the House Appropriate Committee, Representative Democrat Mike Quigley from Illinois got into a heated discussion with Ben Carson, the Secretary of HUD, which is now proposing a rule that would pave the way for the department to allow trans discrimination and banishment after Carson claimed that he had no intention to alter the rule. Carlson said that allowing trans women in HUD's operating facilities would amount to be giving them extra rights because he claims that their presence doesn't take into account the feelings of everyone else. Oh boy. Carlson kept harping back to people's feelings. Quigley responded by saying, "The law says that you can't discriminate." Then he turned off the speaker and walked out. This was surrounding Carson's wanting to discriminate at homeless shelters and housing. So,
Get him out.
yeah, when? Pro golfer loses 3 sponsorships after making a homophobic joke about Pete Buttigieg. I think it's Peasley, posted a meme on social media that said, "Pete pulls out early from behind."
I think it's mean.
Yeah? And along with the meme was an image of Pete the Frog, a cartoon associated with the alt-right and white nationalism. Pearsley later apologized on social media, but 3 sponsors aren't taking him at his word, and they are not going to give him a sponsorship, so that's good. Idaho
He'll be buying his own shoes
and jackets and hats. Yeah.
Cry me a river.
Yeah, really. Idaho GOP wants to have genital exams for girls in high school. Chris Moser, the first trans athlete to qualify for a men's Olympic trial, sues Idaho. HB 500 was introduced by Republican Barbara Earhart, who is pushing the bill because of her concern about young girls and wanting to protect women in sports. So there's that. Hours after a restroom incident, a trans woman was found dead in Puerto Rico. Alexa Ruiz was killed 12 hours after using a McDonald's bathroom. She had also been reported to the police for using said bathroom. 4 teens are thought to have been involved in her murder. 1 has been apprehended.
So there's been a change in Vermont law effective as of March 1st, and it has to do with a health exchange called VITAL, Vermont Health Information Exchange. Now, this organization has been around for several years. The original intent was they would create a centralized repository of critical healthcare information so that if we were to show up in the emergency room, they could access prevalent medical conditions, active treatment, etc., have a basis for which they could then start to administer treatment. Only when it was established on an opt-in premise. You would have to say positively, I want my information shared. Well, during the last legislative year, they changed that. So it's now an opt-out process. So as of the beginning of this month, all of your healthcare information is accessible to a Vermont provider via this health exchange network.
That's not good.
You might want to sit down and talk with your healthcare provider about what it is that's in your healthcare record.
Can they take it out then?
Well, you can opt out. You can say, I do not want my information shared with Vital, and you can do that by going on the Vital site,
But can your doctor take it out if you
vitl.net.
say to them?
That is a conversation you want to have with your physician. You know, what is the information that you feel comfortable going into Vital? What is the information that you and your doctor decide is critical and
Right.
it should be accessible in an emergency situation? And what is it that, quite frankly, is none of your business? And we were thinking about the people within the HIV, transgender community, trauma survivors, you know, what is the information? Because right now, it's all information. So the other thing to be aware of coming right up, the census. April 1st is Census Day, so people are going to be starting to get notices. You can go online, telephone in, answer the census questions, why we really want to participate. And as older LGBTQ plus, why we really want to participate. The estimate is that for every person counted, Vermont will receive $4,500 in federal funding. So if we have seniors and we have same-sex marriage households, we're going to have more money coming in, and then we're going to have a voice in how that money is utilized. The other piece is looking at Vermont's indigenous community. We do not have an indigenous community in Vermont that is recognized by the federal government. So if all of a sudden there is a noticeable percentage of people on the census who identify as Native American, Alaskan, Inuit, we're going to get greater attention, and there's a possibility of, could we then be in a position to advocate for recognition and funding? So, and the other thing that I wanted to sort of point out is that Out in the Open, which is the organization of Brattleboro, they're doing a queer winter movie series. And on March 17th, a week from tonight, they're showing Out Here, documentary about queer farmers. Took them 4 years to do it. This is going to be the premiere. So,
Very good.
I know.
Is this my last segment?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Prioritize.
Yeah, because I picked
Summarize.
Okay, let's go to Poland. First, I'd like to.
Must we?
I know there's trouble there, but I'd like to reintroduce you now to the gay atheist leftist who's taking on Poland's right-wing government and running for president. His name is Robert Biedron, and I have a picture before you now of him. He's run before. He's openly gay, atheist, leftist, anti-coal, which is another
Isn't there a liberal in
oppositional-
Warsaw? A liberal
the mayor.
mayor,
yes. But he, Mr. Biedron, is his former small-town mayor who is as charismatic as he is polarizing in his pitch to turn the overwhelmingly Catholic nation leftward. Who would imagine? This is Poland, after all, where government leaders have joined the Catholic Church to condemn gay rights as an attack on children. In the last year, nearly 100 communities have declared themselves free of LGBT ideology. The Bishop of Krakow recently decried a rainbow plague and complained of sinister environmental activists.
and they have such a good history in Krakow.
Sinister.
Yeah, really.
Well, and since we're, Mr. Biedron has won elections to become the mayor of Slupsk. And 3 years after that, he faced critics, and he took a pay cut, and he really doesn't expect to win. But of local interest, in interviews, Bidron said he was influenced by Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, who surprised U.S. pollsters by winning early Democratic contests despite being the most radical in the field. Bidron was also compared to French President Emmanuel Macron, a long-shot candidate who came from outside big parties before his election. More activities from Poland. Polish activists face legal action over an atlas of hate. These LGBT activists drew a map of all the zones with anti-LGBT laws, and so the municipalities are suing them. And finally, from Poland, the Polish LGBT activists have launched a protest against Archbishop Marek Jedrzejewski, who said that Poland is under siege with the rainbow flag. So there's a lot of percolation in Poland. Now I'd like to go to a really awful story from Croatia. A Croatian town burns a gay couple effigy at a parade. And now I have a picture before you of the effigy before it was burned. It features a gay couple with an adopted child, which had the child had a 5-pointed star on his forehead resembling that of the Yugoslav flag for the central carnival figure. They eventually set the effigy on fire, burned it to the ground amid cheers from onlookers. Like it or not, but this is abnormal for us, but everyone has the right to be whatever they want, they proclaimed to onlookers. Now, Zoran Milosevic, Croatia's president, condemned the burning of the gay couple in effigy. It depicted two men kissing. He condemned it as inhumane and totally unacceptable.
Who did it? Was it a group or?
It was the town. And they said, we have a secret.
The capital? Or
No, it's no.
They have a secret what?
We have a secret revelation in this parade.
Wow.
It's a small town.
It reminds me of the British tradition of burning the Wicker Man.
Yeah.
But I have some more.
Okay.
I told you about the homophobic housing policy ruled unconstitutional in Hong Kong. The news from Israel is that 100 LGBT filmmakers plan to boycott the Tel Aviv Film Festival to support queer Palestinians. Then in better news, the High Court in Israel extends surrogacy rights to gay couples and single men. And so I have a picture now before you of a group called Proud Fathers who've just returned from Thailand with their babies that they've adopted. One more picture for you. The tickets are now on sale for London's first ever Muslim LGBT Pride Festival. It's called Iman Fest. And right now I want to show you the advertisement for it. It's very much needed. Muslim British gay people are feeling very alone and excluded. It brings together artists and advocates for an event that organizers hope will spotlight a community that's very unrepresented. We are Muslims as we are LGBT, they say, and it's Iman Fest. Panel and discussions will feature queer Muslim guests, including British Black bisexual Muslim activist Blair Amani, queer British Iraqi writer, trans activists. The media has tried to control the narrative about queer Islamic identities for too long, they say, often thrusting us into a horrific culture war, as if Islam is the mortal enemy of queer identity. So this, look forward to that. It's going to be in July 2019, and I'll tell you more about that
Okay.
as the time approaches.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
And I just have a couple of stories left. One is about Aaron Schock, former GOP politician, comes out as gay but queer. I-star Jonathan Van Ness is having a hard time celebrating the former congressman's coming out. Van Ness, the program's grooming expert, was born in Quincy, Illinois, within the state's 18th congressional district, with Schock, a Republican, represented in the U.S. House from 2009 to 2015. When he resigned due to allegations of financial improprieties, Schock,
He misused funds.
long rumored to be gay, came out in an Instagram post last week. Van Ness is not about to forgive him for his anti-LGBTQ record, which includes opposition to marriage equality, LGBT inclusion of hate crime legislation, and the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So.
And his family tried to send him for conversion therapy.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. At his age?
Yeah.
Wow. Texas is seeing a rainbow wave in the Democratic primaries. Gina Ortiz Jones, a lesbian, has won the Democratic nomination in her district. 4 LGBTQ state representatives won their primaries, and all 5 incumbents have won. On a sad note, Mart Crowley, Boys in the Band creator, dies at 84. His pioneering 1968 drama was about openly gay men at a birthday party and was a game changer in the theater.
The tagline was, "Everyone gets out alive."
I remember, why aren't we ever happy?
Yeah.
And quickly, a Georgia school is on the defensive after a 13-year-old transgender student was removed from a Valentine's Day dance for wearing makeup and girls' clothing, according to her mother. Carissa Mahorja told the local ABC affiliate she's livid following the actions of Rick Creek school officials in southeastern Georgia. Mahaya said her daughter's outfit was innocuous: black top, black slacks, and a rose in her hair, and that she should not have been removed from the dance and then placed in the school library. She was crying and upset because this was the first time she was able to express who she was inside in a public setting. Honestly, she was going to go in a dress, but she chose not to, just in case it was going to be a problem, she told the news station. A school counselor informed Mohaya her daughter was escorted from the dance because she was wearing a costume. At a last-minute meeting with the counselor and the school principal, she explained her daughter was transgender, but claims the principal demanded medical proof. So
It should be on the defensive. That school district
yes,
should be reprimanded and penalized and sued.
yes, and as they probably will be.
I hope so.
So
Depends on the state statute and if
Yeah.
it will support it.
it is Georgia.
So this is crossover week, which means bills need to make it from one chamber to the other for consideration of action during this year. So one of the things that we're looking at is H6111, the Older Vermonters Act, which was supposed to be voted out of House Human Services this week. So it could then go to the Senate. And by virtue of lobbying efforts, there is an inclusion of language that, oh yes, LGBTQ plus people qualify as older Vermonters and our needs need to be taken into consideration. There was a bill that sort of low-key, but we were following that would put a ban on female genital cutting and mutilation. It's been signed into law. So,
Good.
and this was in response to a gynecologist who actually serves in the legislature, who said that he had been approached. It was an issue in Chittenden County. It is now law. The House resolution issuing an apology for sterilization that was the result of the eugenics movement and specifically identified the impact on Vermont's Abenaki community. It's expanding. So it's also looking at education, reparation, how it is we move forward. An apology is a good first step, but we need to ensure we don't stop there. So there will be a study group that will come together with recommendations of what it is that we do moving forward. An acknowledgement: today is primary day in 6 states,
Yes.
Michigan, Missouri, Mississippi, North Dakota, Idaho, and Washington. Looking at Super Tuesday, LGBTQ voters.
54% were
Bingo.
Biden. I mean,
Well, no.
Bernie, right?
No, that's not where I'm going.
Oh, okay.
It's looking at how we were percentages of the general population in these states.
Uh-huh.
We more than doubled our representation, such as in Vermont. The estimate is that the LGBTQ plus community is 5.2% of the population. We accounted for greater than 10% of those who voted.
Wow.
If you don't think your vote makes a difference, we did. And we are having a strong influence on what's happening in the primaries.
And I read somewhere that Bernie got 54% of the LGBTQ vote.
In Vermont.
No, in the country.
Oh, the one statistic I had read, I thought it was specific to Vermont.
Yeah.
No,
So, anyway.
So, we have an interview that was done by Professor Charles with a queer writer.
Of sci-fi.
And dark fantasy.
And
I was
dark
going to
fantasy.
leave
Okay.
that for the interview.
Yeah.
I'm here with Kathrin Hutson, queer sci-fi writer and writer of dark fantasy. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Let's start out with the queer part of your description. Would you mind explaining to us what it means to you?
Sure. I originally, when I started trying to find the way that I identified, which was in high school, actually, so it's been a long time, but I just went with bi. At the time, there weren't very many more options that I was aware of.
Mm-hmm.
There were about 3, 4. And I have come to the realization that for myself personally, identifying as bi is particularly limiting for myself. And
Because it's a binary?
yeah, and it's, one or the other, or both, or, it seems to feel like being, like you said, binary. And I actually picked up identifying as queer and started using that when I went to, it was a Pride Parade in Charleston, South Carolina, 2013, 2014. And they had a huge drag show, and there were kings and queens there, and I had so much fun. And I think I turned around, and I had gone with my best friend at the time, and he'd been introducing me to the really great LGBT community that's out there, and we had a conversation that basically turned into, well, you just went full on queer, and that's fine. And that felt a lot more, I guess personally, felt right to me. So I've gone with that, and it kind of covers, I guess, a broad spectrum there.
How does being queer influence your writing, if it does?
Well, I definitely write queer characters, which is something that I have noticed for a long time, is there is a lack of representation for queer characters in speculative fiction specifically, and more along, fantasy and sci-fi, which is what I write, where the story isn't predicated on a romance or on a character being queer, where that's just part of who they are and part of the character, and then the rest of the story is there as the rest of the story, and that is how I write my queer characters. And I actually don't, that my characters will have relationships, of course, in books, as characters do, and there will be, an intimate scene here or there, but it's never the focus of the story.
So you try to write characters you try to write plots that don't focus on romance or eroticism?
Yes, that don't focus on it, absolutely. I don't write erotica and I don't write romance. Those are the only two genres that I know I can't do. Those are my limits. So there may be elements of romance or elements of eroticism in what I write, but it's not the main focus of the book, and the story is much broader and goes on a deeper level with the main characters and their own growth, and they just happen to be queer at the same time. So I'm not writing about, characters going through their own exploration and figuring out how they identify, and I'm not doing coming of age stuff with queer characters, but it's more of, as if I were writing someone who had black hair, and that just is part of who they are. And those are the characters that I wanted to see.
Where did you grow up? Speaking of high school and
yes,
your past life.
Past life. I grew up in Lakewood, Colorado, and I didn't ever think that I was going to leave Colorado, but I ended up leaving. I went to college at University of Colorado at Boulder, and then stuck around for a little while, moved all over the state, and when I met my husband, actually, is when I moved out of state for the first time.
And you majored in creative writing.
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us a little about that? You started writing earlier, and so that gave you some momentum, or? Well,
yeah, writing has always been what I wanted to do since I was 10, since I started writing, and when I discovered that was something that I could do and enjoyed, and once I started, I never really stopped. So I actually wrote my first 2 novels in high school, and they didn't get seen or picked up for a long, long time, and multiple revisions through those. But then I wanted to go to school to get my degree in creative writing, and that was a great experience because I was finally, with other writers and my peers, and I was able to experience getting picked apart in a workshop setting in the classroom.
Positive.
I did, because I'd never had someone tell me this was awful before. So it was very humbling, and also, made me realize that I needed to kick myself into gear and get better.
So you have to toughen up to be in those workshops, huh?
Oh yeah.
How many books have you written?
With my name on them, I've written 7 books now and a novella.
All fiction?
Yes, all fiction. And I also ghostwrite fiction as well, so the tally on those books is quite a bit higher.
Tell me how you happen to come to Vermont. How long have you been here?
Yes.
How do you like it?
Yeah, so we moved to Vermont, in July of 2017. So however long that's been, almost almost 3 years, I guess. And we came out here because my husband was trying to open a new business in Boston, and I have family here. My aunt and uncle live here, my 2 cousins, and so we wanted to be close to them in Vermont, and I always have loved Vermont. I used to spend summers here as a kid, so.
It's kind of pretty and rural, like I imagine Colorado to be, in a whole different way.
Yeah, much different way. Colorado's a lot drier, and it's not nearly as green. So I actually prefer the weather here in the summer. Not a big fan of the snow. We lived in South Carolina for a while, like I said, and that's the weather that I enjoy the most.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we came out here, and we've been here for almost 3 years. Really enjoy it, and this has been the state where my writing career has kind of blossomed.
Speaking of your writing career, would you mind, I know you brought something to share with us, would you mind reading a little from one of your books?
Absolutely. I have, yes, this is pulled from my newest book that will be out May 26th, and that's the sequel to Sleepwater Beat. It's the first book in the Blue Helix series. This is my queer dystopian sci-fi. So the reading that I picked is from the sequel, and that is Sleepwater Static. Olivia hadn't heard reality in her mother's words. There'd been no room for it beneath the magic of Bernadette's beat that had set her daughter ablaze in a very different kind of way, the worst way imaginable. And now the only thing existing behind those light brown eyes, the color of damp leaves, was the same kind of hatred Bernadette had been trying to hold at bay for the last 16 years, to keep it from Olivia, and now she just made it a part of Olivia. A hand rose quickly to Bernadette's mouth, but she didn't let herself touch her own lips for fear that it would break whatever was left of her after this. Sweetheart, I didn't... Yeah. A sharp, cruel laugh of disbelief burst from the girl's trembling lips. Humiliated tears spilled down those flawless cheeks, flawless even beneath the blush that should never have been put there by the woman who birthed her into this world. Olivia, the girl, snatched up her laptop and clutched it to her chest as she stormed out of the living room. Her footsteps thudded down the hall, across the house, up the stairs, and back across again until her bedroom door slammed shut with a bang. That was the sound of the end. It was the sound of Bernadette's heart slamming shut just the same. How had she not known? 16 years of giving more time and energy and love than she ever thought she'd have to give, and how had she not known the words that would tailor her beat to her own daughter? Bernadette choked for her next breath of air, not because of Olivia's beat this time, but because she'd done the unthinkable, and now her body had initiated a self-destruct command discovered only by what she should never have been allowed to do. That was how she would pay for her proud blindness, wasn't it? She would drop right there on the rug in her family's living room and never get back up again. She'd give her life as the only reparation that would mean anything after crossing a line that should never have existed, and it would never be enough. Bernadette could let go completely right now, and for the rest of Olivia's life it would never be enough. Her knees buckled beneath her, and she almost did crumble to the floor in that moment. Somehow, by the grace of some unseen force, or was it a curse, Bernadette managed to keep her footing, even as she stumbled forward toward the back end of her home. With unseeing eyes, her head reeling, this body that had seen too much already and had finally done more than could be absolved, shuffled across the worn wooden floors toward the kitchen. A hand that wasn't her own reached up and slid the key ring off the hook by the kitchen door. That hand just kept moving all by itself, curved around the dented brass doorknob, twisted just the right amount. The door swung open, and it didn't matter now whether that hand remembered to shut it again, or if it had simply had other plans in mind. If Bernadette wasn't meant to drop dead in her own living room after this, maybe that was where her feet took her now. Maybe once she slid dumbly behind the wheel of Daryl's Monte Carlo, that phantom hand would steer her toward her final resting place. The James Island Connector or the Arthur Ravenel Jr. Bridge were plenty high enough above the harbor to get the job done. Or maybe she'd find herself down in Hollywood again, back where it all started, her lungs filling with saltwater brine and pluff mud and the scent of the best clusters opening up before the harvest for oyster season, wondering how she got there until she stopped wondering anything at all.
Great. Tell us the name of the title of this book?
That is Sleepwater Static.
Sleepwater Static,
yes.
Which is a sequel to Sleepwater Beat.
Yes.
Same characters.
Well,
no.
It's a group of characters that are there throughout the whole series. Sleepwater Static actually has a different main character than Sleepwater Beat does.
Yeah, Sleepwater Beat had Leo. I remember. I listened to an interview about that particular book. Sounds very interesting. I was trying to explain the conceit about the beat, and can you explain it?
Yes, it's sort of a superpower, I suppose, like I call it, that is certain people in the world who have this ability, who have the beat, can elicit physical responses in people who hear them speak with a certain type of word. So it's like X-Men, but with the spoken word instead.
I know you have a very rigorous writing schedule, and I know you have 2 dogs and a daughter. Tell us about your family, if you want.
Yeah, my daughter's 3 years old, and she's in preschool, so my time has opened up a lot since she started. Since she started that. Of course, I'm with her in the morning, and her dad takes her to school, which is actually really fantastic. I now am able to support all 5 of us, including the dogs, just off my writing. That's been very, very cool. And so my husband decided he wanted to be a stay-at-home dad, and he is rocking it.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. And what are the dogs' names?
Sadie and Bruce Willis, one word.
I see. You have some upcoming events that I'd like you to tell us about, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, I do. The biggest one coming up that's in person, I will be at the Imaginarium Book Festival in Washington, D.C., and that is on May 2nd. So I get to take a trip and travel. I'm one of the attending signing authors, selling books with a bunch of other fantasy and sci-fi authors.
Well, that sounds great.
It's going to be fun, yeah.
Well, thank you for coming in, Kathrin.
Thank you so much for having me.
I've enjoyed it.
Me too, thanks.
The sequel that is being published in May.
That's right.
So
keep
here's
an
an
eye
opportunity.
out for that.
So the trivia question, by virtue of community response, H622, which was a bill that looks as though was not going to see action, all of a sudden got a public hearing. And actually, the next session, it got voted successfully and signed into law. It was about HIV non-discrimination.
And Linda, I got it.
Linda got it on the first guess. And you have a new closing for us.
A new what? Oh, closing.
Closing for the show.
Just for tonight. I want to show
okay.
This clip.
Are we going to end with this clip?
No, we're going to end. We're going to show the clip and then.
Sorry.
So there was a movie called Pride, and it was about LGBT community coming to the aid of miners who were striking in Wales. This is the clip, and I hope you enjoy it. I think it's a good clip for our times.
So victory! Victory to the miners!
In the beauty of the day, a million darkened kitchens, 1,000 middle-lofts grey, are touched with all the radiance that a sudden sun discloses. For the people here are singing, bread and roses, bread and roses. As we go marching, marching,
on that note.
Well, before we continue, I want to wish a member of our panel a
Happy birthday!
I wish we had a kazoo.
I have two at home. So,
And as it comes to aging, our recommendation is
resist.